Hello everyone. Give it a couple minutes, but I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. Tonight, my voice sounds a little muffled because I got a mask on because I'm gonna be priming these Wolverines tonight. So real quick, I'm gonna go over kind of my setup. This is my paint booth. This is just a Masters cheap one that I got on Amazon. I don't think it was very expensive. It does have a vent and LED lights. Just show you real quick. So that screen in the back, hey Paul, I won't be using that tonight because it's loud, obviously, but that screen in the back basically sucks any paint debris or paint fumes that way. That's why it's that beautiful color red. But I'm not going to be using that, so I'm going to have a mask on when I'm painting. For the airbrush itself, for almost all of my custom, except my early ones when I didn't have an airbrush, I've just used this cheap Masters airbrush. Again, this was hey Paul Axe 68. So this was just a cheap one on Amazon. Again, I used this because I wasn't sure. I wanted to get used to airbrushing before I got anything too crazy. But today I'm going to be using this one because it is my old one now. I have this new Badger Chrome that I got during their anniversary sale. So I now use this one for all my finish work, but I still use this cheap one for priming and gloss coats and things like that. So, and then over here, I have my little spinny rack. This is just an old brick of Super Sculpey that I had for like a decade. I had nothing to do with it. So I just use that to hold everything in place. And then I use these little alligator clips to grab each one of the pieces. And for some of them, I just peg it into the socket, these little bamboo skewers. All right. And then for some things, I made these little stands. I think I saw those. Paul, those are pretty cool. But I made these stands out of wooden dowels, and these are corks from whiskey bottles. So I wanted something primarily for heads that I could just stand up, not have to worry about sitting them down. But for these smaller 1/18 scale heads, sometimes I just had to make do with what I got. So sometimes I'll just stick them on either end of there, and I'll balance them on a cup or something to dry that way. And then for the paint itself, tonight I'm going to be using, this is the I don't even know how to say it, Steinel Res. It's a Badger product, same as the Chrome airbrush. So I'm going to be using 3 different shades: black, gray, and white. Epoxy for what? Got a question, do I use epoxy? I also occasionally use this Tamiya surface primer. Yes, I use epoxy sculpt, or yeah, Abe's epoxy. You can check out the other live streams that I have uploaded for more details on all the different sculpting stuff I use. But yeah, I use that for sculpting. So anyway, occasionally I use this Tamiya fine surface primer. This is white, and then I also have just a matte black. That's usually for bigger stuff that I don't want to waste a bunch of primer. Get So I'm gonna get started, and I forget the name of this technique. I saw it first looking at a bunch of miniature, like war game type stuff. Yeah, that's the same thing I made mine out of. There he is. I'm blanking on the name of it right now. But I first saw it used with a lot of miniature model people, the model masters, the Warhammer type stuff. Um, I think it's Zenithal priming, but it's basically to put your shading down on the figure. Here's one of the heads I did. Rather than just doing a flat coat over the whole thing, you spray your different shades at different angles, which I'll show you in a bit. And that kind of highlights all the high points and low lights and all that stuff. A lot of people do that, and then they use like a clear color paint or a very light or a thin layer of the actual color they want to use, um, because that way all the shading is already done with the primer. But I mainly do it because I want to see the details and make sure my sculpt is looking good, because I usually end up just doing so many different coats of paints and different shades of red or whatever it is. For like Daredevil, I used several different shades of red, so rather than just rely on the paint primer. So anyway, I'm going to get started. I'm going to use the black first. Again, if my voice is muffled, that's because I have a mask on because I'm not using the vent, and I don't want to breathe in a bunch of this crap. So some of the other stuff I use, this is Flow. No, I've never cosplayed other than for Halloween. That Flow stuff is this. It's basically like, I guess, like soapy water, but it allows, it slows down how quickly the paint dries, so it doesn't clog up the airbrush quite as quickly. And then what else? To thin the paint, for these primers, you're not supposed to have to thin it, but I do a little bit anyway because these tend to clog up my airbrush. So, and then another thing I do when I'm priming specifically, because these paints are a little bit thicker, you can adjust the needle in your brush. So you can't really see it, but I just pull the needle back very slightly so that I get a little more room to allow the paint to flow through. And the air compressor I have down there is also just some cheap Masters one. It's noisy, but it's gotten the job done for a few years now, so I won't get rid of it until it breaks. One tip I've learned through just watching a bunch of other guys airbrush is I always take the tip off, because this thing is gonna get a bunch of residue and stuff clogged up in there, and it's gonna affect how the paint comes off of the tip. So I always just take that off. Just be careful you don't slam down the tip of it, or else you're gonna break your needle. All right, so I'm gonna start with the black. One thing I always like to do first, a couple drops of the Flow, just to kind of get things lubed up and moving. This is what I clean my airbrush with. This is just a mixture of Windex, alcohol, and distilled water. It's a good mix to use to get all that gunk out of your airbrush. And then I also sometimes use this, or I just use water to thin my acrylics. Unless they are Tamiya paints, then I use this. So yeah, different jobs call for different things. And I'm always trying to test new stuff out and see what works best. So I'm going to be priming quite a bit. So just put that in there. A little bit. And actually I'm going to put this cap on real quick because if you plug up the tip and get some air in there, it'll bubble up and kind of mix the paint for you. Once that starts flowing through, you could use that Spider UK body, but I wanted the butterfly joints. So just even spurts. Being careful not to stick on one spot for too long. As you can see, because I put that extra stuff in there, it doesn't dry as quickly as it normally would. So if you keep spraying on one spot, you're going to get little pools and it's going to screw up the finish. Yeah, it's still a good, the Spidey UK body is still a good buck. I like that it already has the clothes textures, or the wrinkles in the clothes and all that already sculpted in, so that's kind of cool. So I'm not trying to get a full coat just yet. I'm not worried about it. I'm just trying to lay down a nice thin, even just initial dusting. Because I'm going to be putting 3 layers of paint on this thing. So you don't want to go too heavy and have to wait for it to dry and all that kind of stuff. All right, on to some of the body parts. Yeah, I'm going to paint all the heads. He'll have 3 different heads. He'll have the SH, or Superhero Showdown head that modified the fins on. I'm going to be using this one for mine, which is the Superhero Showdown unmasked head. And then we have the Marvel Universe unmasked head, and the one that you sent me from, I think this was also from the Phoenix Forge, or whatever they're called, Angel Forge. Those are available on my website. If you just look for supertomcustoms.com, there's a shop page, and you can buy them straight from there with PayPal or a credit card. So you can see some of the additional sculpt work I had to do. Get these things a little more accurate. Thank you. Smoothed out the forearms. They had like a raised part around the top of it, like a cuff, but that isn't really comic accurate, so I smoothed that stuff out. And these are the SHS Superhero Showdown arms. Awesome. So, and here's a couple of the alternate hands, and I sculpted his little sheaths, whatever you want to call those things. This is a hand from a Black Panther figure, I believe. Yeah, before I paint, I sand everything down like crazy. There's tutorials everywhere for that stuff. Sand everything down, wash everything, scrub it with a toothbrush and some soapy water. That gets any of your oil from your hands or residue if it's a mold. That'll clean all that stuff off. Or get all the residue from sanding. These are gonna be tricky. So I don't necessarily have to prime the whole figure, especially when I'm covering up the same color with the same color. But I like to do it anyway because it gives it avoids any chances that, you know, if you paint blue over blue in one spot and then blue over gray in another spot, you run the risk of it not looking the same. So if you go back to the very first, yeah, this is a 4-inch or 3 3/4-inch Wolverine. If you go back to the first live stream, you can see how I made these how I cut the feet out to make ankle rockers for this guy. I'll post a picture of my Marvel Universe collection. I just set it up again. I got about 100 figures or so. I don't have as big a collection as a lot of people out there, but I feel like I have a pretty decent one. I like to fluctuate through things quite a bit, so, you know, I'll buy a bunch of stuff and then be like, why did I buy this? And then sell it and move on to another collection. So here's the finished torso for the tiger stripe. Sorry about the lighting, because I can't turn this thing on. The lighting's kind of shitty, but sculpted the neck. Did a live stream on how I attached this neck to that body. Sculpted the belt, sculpted the stripes. Will I ever sell my Daredevil? Probably not. Unless something bad happens. And I desperately need money. But that's one I've wanted to make for myself for a very long time, so it's near and dear to me, you could say. So I had already primed these white. These are the tiger stripe legs, because I sculpted some additional fins on the boots here, and I primed them white because I wanted to make sure that I blended the sculpt in with the figure. Same with the ankle rockers down here. I just wanted to make sure. I have plans to do some stuff with Iron Fist and improve the Luke Cage a little bit. But who knows when I'll get to that stuff. I gotta wrap up a bunch of commissions, and I got some other stuff I want to make for the store, for my store, before I can make stuff for myself again. So I'm about to run out. It's getting low. So whenever I run out, rather than just pouring paint straight in there, I like to clean it out a little bit because the paint will dry up on the sides. Oops, sorry about that. And I just have a little box over here with a bunch of those billy clubs that I made for Daredevil were a one and done because they took a long time, and there would be no way to mass produce those, not to do the same effect. I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 magnets just in one set. And it took a lot of very fine-tuned sanding and carving out very specific shapes and sizes. So to do that again on a mass scale would be a total nightmare. All right, so I just cleaned it out fairly good. There's some stuff stuck there, but that's fine. So just same thing again. You can kind of see how thick that goes in. A little of that in there, put the tip back on. Make a life-size custom? I don't think so. It's basically what cosplay is, isn't it? Hey Daniel, I'll have to check it out in a bit. I'm live streaming with my phone here, so I can't switch over without killing the feed, so. I met a guy once that made life-size Iron Man costumes, which was pretty awesome looking. And he was making a life-size Hulk, which was like 7 or 8 feet tall or something crazy. So I sculpted some lines on this one. This is going to be the brown suit. Ooh. Can't really see it now. But basically where the brown meets the orange, I just sculpted some lines there so it'll be a little easier to paint and also add some depth to his costume. I always try to make these things look somewhat realistic. I don't know what that means, Paul. So yeah, I always try to make these look semi-realistic so that, you know, different layers of clothing aren't just a painted line. And, you know, if it's cloth, it has wrinkles. If it's metal, it has... Do I watch what pound? I didn't see the last thing. All right, so I've made it around my little carousel here. So now I'm going to do another coat on these things. This time I'm just going to kind of focus on the bottom. So shooting up at the figure rather than straight on. What's his name again? I'm not familiar with him. I used to be more involved on Figure Realm and Foosh and other forums and stuff. But it just kind of, with the website and Instagram, it just kind of became too much to try to post everything everywhere and keep up with everything that's going on. So I mainly try to stick to Instagram and my website to promote that as much as possible, considering I have to pay to keep that going. But I'll check it out. I'm always happy to look at other people's stuff because it usually inspires me to keep going or try new things. Yeah, Foosh is great. I will, definitely. So you can see I'm flipping these arms upside down so that you get that angle, get the shading under the bicep. And again, I'm not really going to use any of this shading for the final paint job, but it helps me kind of visualize where it should go and any imperfections in my sculpting and that kind of stuff. No, I've never bought any Hot Toys. I think they're awesome, but it's too expensive of a hobby for me. And I'm not really into movie figures at all. Ever. In any scale. It's just not my thing. I do like the Sideshow 1/6 scale. What do they call it? They call their statues figures, which is confusing. But they have 1/6 scale, like real figures. I own the Nathan Drake of those, but now those are just as expensive as Hot Toys, so. And it broke. That sucks. So this guy, I'm obviously going to have to rotate his torso around, rotate his shoulders around, rotate his neck back, and then redo some of this. But I just get every layer done. You can see it's going on nice and smooth now. I'm not really seeing any imperfections yet. I'm sure I will once I start looking closer. I'm almost all the way around and I'm almost out. So that's good. Oh, I'm out and I need like 4 more pieces. Hey, evil good guy. Yeah, I do like 1/12 scale. I started with 1/18 scale. And the very first custom I made, though, ironically, was a 12-inch Groot figure. But I made it to go with my 1/18 scale figures. So I started on that big one, and then I moved into just doing a bunch of Marvel Universe scale figures. And I enjoyed the challenge of those because you have to work so small, and it's a lot harder to add detail. And then when I joined the Floosh Secret Santa, no, I have not. When I did the Floosh Secret Santa, that's kind of when I started getting into the 6-inch scale figures. And I like it because you can add a lot more detail. You can get more creative with, not more creative, but you can get more clever, I would say. Like with the Billy Clubs with Daredevil, I don't think I would have been able to make those in 1/18 scale. It'd just be, I mean, I guess it would be possible, but they don't make magnets small enough. Yeah, I loved Gwen Webb. I used to watch all his videos. I was really upset to hear when he died. That was a real blow to the customizing community. I don't take any commissions right now. It's mainly just because I'm super busy. I am thinking about painting up a few of my Daredevil heads and selling those. But I'm so backed up on stuff that I'm not taking on any more work because I hate making people wait, except for my 2 most loyal fans and customers and friends. I consider them all 3. They are very, very, very patient with me. And they allow me to do some of my own stuff in between doing their stuff, which is awesome for me. All right, I got a little bit left, so I'm just gonna get this done. Let's get a little bit more on this. Now I was all ready to paint up these guys. So I sculpted the things on it. I got the wrist hinge in there that I added, I think in the first or second live stream I did. But then me and my buddy who I'm making this for, we're toying around with the metal claws. So you can see that. Spent about 3 hours dremeling these things down. These are just bobby pins. Dremeling them down, then polishing and polishing and polishing and polishing. So I have 12 of these ready to go. I got some new hands coming in that'll hopefully just be able to slide those into, and he can have real metal claws that aren't all floppy and bendy like the plastic ones. All right, so done with the black. I'm gonna move on to the gray. Again, I just clean this thing out. Oh, forgot to take the tip off of this thing. But the last thing you want is any of this stuff clogging up your project halfway through. Because then you got to disassemble the whole thing, and it's a real pain in the ass. And this is just, again, this little squirt bottle. Squirt that in there, switch it around. I missed that last comment. What was that? Another drop of flow. All right, I'll check them out. Moving on to the gray. Quite a bit in there because I'm going to be doing a lot. This is just a mixture of Windex, 70% rubbing alcohol, and distilled water. I think it's like 40, 40, 20. 40% Windex, 40% water, and 20% alcohol. And I just kind of came up with that from reading stuff online and trying stuff out myself. And there's no specific science to it. That's kind of what I came up with. Whoops, sorry guys. Let that bubble up. All right, so now with the gray, I'm gonna come at it from a little different angle, not straight on, not on top, but you know, like let's say that's, if you're at 0 here, you know, come up about 20, 30 degrees. I don't have any DC figures. I was collecting them for a little bit, the icons, which I thought were gonna be like the line that I would want to collect. And then when I finally got my hands on them, one of the Flash I got was broken, and I didn't like the size of them, and I just sold them and moved on. So you can already see it starting to bring out some of the details. Yeah, I'm not a fan of those either. That new line looks promising. I forget what they're called. Whoops. It's not icons, but whatever they're revamping that line with, where they're closer to the Marvel Legends scale and they look like they have better articulation, hopefully better plastic. All right, now time to go around the merry-go-round here again. So again, just hold it the angle that it's gonna sit and kind of hit it at that 30-degree angle. You're not trying to cover up all the black. You're trying to let the black stay on in the shadows and underneath clothing folds and things like that. Sorry, I keep hitting my damn phone. Working in cramped quarters here. See? The funky noise you're hearing is because stuff's collecting in there. And get the shoes. Don't need a ton. Light coats. That's the key to all painting. Very light, thin, multiple coats. You can master that, then your figures are going to come out looking much better. It helps to have an airbrush, but if you're not using airbrush and you're just hand brushing everything, water your paint down, get it to that milky consistency, and just take your time. Sometimes you'll need 7-8 coats, especially lighter colors. If you try to glob it all on one coat, it's going to be a disaster. The paint will be thicker than, you know, it'll clog up all the joints. It'll peel off really easily. It's no good. So I'm not looking too closely at these right now just because I'm trying to get through it, but the best part about priming, like I said, if you find any flaws, this stuff sands fairly well. It's not going to sand like a car primer or anything like that, but it'll sand fairly well. It's not going to like peel up or goop up or anything. So you just sand the part you need down, and then repeat these steps again. Do your black, do your gray, and then do your white, which you'll see next. So that's looking pretty cool where you can see all the details, if I can get that in the light. Now, because some of this guy is yellow and some of the other one's orange, probably go a little heavier on the white than I normally would. But we'll get to that in a minute. Almost around 4 more parts. Oh, crap. Almost lost you. I don't know if that cut out or not. If it did, I'm sorry. Keep getting these damn pop-ups. Not pop-ups, but notifications. There you can kind of see the sculpted lines that I put in there. Sorry. All right, is that it? I think that's it. I have an extra hand here. All right. Just cleaning it out again. And I'll do the white. And the white goes pretty quickly. Because with that, you're really just trying to hit those highlights. You don't need to put a thick layer on. But I will go a little thicker than I normally do, like I said, because I'm painting so much yellow on this figure. Yellow and orange. Alright, pretty clean. Start again. Drop a flow. Shake up the primer. See if that's enough. Come out of there. Couple drops of that. Screw the tip back on. Bubble that up a bit. Get those things mixed together. You can also stick a toothpick in there and kind of swirl it around. I just like doing making the bubbles. Gives a better mix. All right, so now I want to come at it at almost a 90-degree angle. So almost straight up and down. This is just to get like the tips is his, like his top of his nose, top of his eyebrows. Start on this head. Back to the carousel. So here I'm looking to get the top of those triceps, top of that bicep, top of that elbow. It's starting to stink in here. So the torso especially, I want to do just a little more white than normal. And his thighs too, obviously, because those are yellow. I stopped reading comics by the time Shadowland came out. And what I remember reading about it, I didn't really like all that much. So I probably will never make a Shadowland Daredevil. It's not something I'm into. I like the just classic Daredevil. I love Bendis's run. I love Brubaker's run. But I got out of comics right towards the end. And Daredevil's kind of the only book that I wanted to keep reading. But I kind of had to make a stance and, you know, all or nothing. Told myself I was going to read them digitally. But then I couldn't get myself to buy, you know, pay for a digital comic, $3.99, $4.99 for something that just lives on an iPad. Maybe I'll make a yellow Daredevil one day. I do actually own a copy of Daredevil #1. It's one of my prized possessions. I don't necessarily like the costume all that much. Alright, that went quickly, so I'm gonna skip the cleaning part real quick here. I like that body, but I still like the Sunfire one just because the butterfly joints. I think they add so much. You can just do so much more with the posing when you have those joints. I wish they, well, it looks promising that the Omega Red coming out soon is going to have butterfly joints, but that's just, you never know with Hasbro. But I'd love to use that bulkier body with butterfly joints for like a Venom or... the ones I made do have the candy cane hook on top. Check out the video on him, because they have the little hook on top. And there's a whole write-up on my website about where I got the inspiration from for those things. Oh, well then you know. Are you talking about something different? The string connects to the wire connects to the billy club, and then the hook attaches to the end of the billy club. Well, it'll probably be a very, very, very long time before I make another Daredevil. Or just a commission for myself. It's probably going to be a while, other than smaller things here and there. Almost done here with the white. Just trying to get those highlights. I think I'm done. I think I started on these arms. I don't remember. Looks like it. I mean, the one with Ben Affleck? I really despise that movie. Yeah. Again, I just like the classic stuff. I wasn't trying to be too crazy with all the gadgets and pop out grapple hooks and all that kind of stuff. And I really hate that movie. So now you just got to make sure you clean this thing out really, really, really well. They were pretty cool. I'll give you that. But I wasn't ready to tackle that much complicated stuff. So, just keep filling it up, keep spraying it. Make sure you get any of the dry stuff off the edges, because that's the stuff that'll fall in there and clog up the needle, and you have to take the whole thing apart. Yeah, I don't know if they will, though, because the Netflix show's been doing so well. I've been enjoying the Netflix show. Alright, so that's pretty good. Alright, so let's take a look at this real quick. So just to recap, 3 different primers. And then that's kind of the effect you get. You can see a lot of the finer details. You can look if there's any sculpt that you tried to blend in with the figure. Let's see if I can get this light. I'll turn this on real quick. It's going to be loud, but it might help you see a little better. Or not. So there you go, all primed up. So now what I'll do is I'll probably wait till tomorrow night, and then I'll bend all the joints, paint all the parts that were covered up this go around, and then bend them back. This is also another good way to make sure you don't have any paint rub and things like that. And so it's a lot easier to screw up some joints when they're just primed, as opposed to when they're, you got the final paint on there. So I'll do that, bend all the joints, check all the paint rub, assemble the whole figure, make sure everything works together, make sure everything's sanded down right, and then move on to painting, which will probably be my next live video in maybe a week or so. So thanks everyone for joining, and I will catch y'all next time.